I'm Amanda Collins, 27 years old, and I once had it all as a rising star in finance. For 6 years, I funded my family's entire lifestyle, sending home thousands each month. Then I lost my job, faced eviction, and when I called my mother for help, she laughed. She actually laughed at my homelessness. I cut them off completely that day. Then came 69 desperate calls trying to get me back. Before I tell you how my own mother laughed in my face when I needed help for the first time in my life, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happened after I finally stood up for myself. Growing up in Millfield, Maine wasn't easy. Our family wasn't the poorest in town, but we definitely struggled. My dad worked at the local paper mill until I was in high school, and Mom picked up occasional shifts at the diner downtown. We lived in a small 3-bedroom house that always needed repairs. The roof leaked, the furnace died every winter, and the plumbing was temperamental at best. Despite all that, I was determined to build a different life. I threw myself into schoolwork, staying up late studying by flashlight when Dad insisted on turning off the lights to save on electricity. The guidance counselor at Millfield High almost fell out of her chair when I told her I wanted to apply to colleges in Boston. "Amanda, honey," she said with that pitying smile adults give dreamers, "those schools are expensive and competitive. Maybe think about community college?" But I applied anyway, wrote essays until my fingers cramped, and secured a full academic scholarship to Boston University. I'll never forget my mother's reaction. Instead of pride, she frowned. "Boston's expensive. Who's going to help out around here if you're gone?" Dad was more supportive, in his quiet way, helping me pack my single suitcase the night before I left. College was a culture shock. My roommates came from wealthy families, had traveled internationally, and wore clothes that didn't come from clearance racks. I felt like an imposter in those first months, but I channeled that insecurity into more hard work. I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in finance and economics. Even landed an internship at Maxwell Financial during my junior year that turned into a job offer. My starting salary was more money than my parents had ever made combined. I still remember staring at the offer letter, hands shaking. $70,000 plus bonuses. It felt unreal. I called home immediately to share the news. "That's nice, sweetie," Mom said distractedly. "Listen, your father hasn't been feeling well. The doctor says it's his diabetes acting up again. We might need some help with the medical bills." That was the beginning. Dad's health had been declining for years, his diabetes causing complications that required specialists and medications not covered by his basic insurance. My first paycheck hadn't even cleared when I sent home $2,000. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in an unsafe neighborhood to save money. While my colleagues bought designer clothes and went out for expensive drinks, I shopped at discount stores and packed lunches. Every month, I sent money home. By 23, I was promoted to junior investment advisor. My salary jumped to $90,000. I should have been ecstatic, but the calls from home had increased too. Tyler, my younger brother, had started college but lost his partial scholarship due to poor grades. "He's just not good at school like you," Mom explained. "We need 16,000 for his tuition." I worked overtime, took on extra clients, did whatever I could to increase my bonuses. My boss noticed my dedication and fast-tracked my career. By 25, I was making 6 figures, but it never felt like enough. I moved to a larger 1-bedroom apartment, not for myself, but because my family had started visiting more frequently. They needed somewhere to stay in the city for medical appointments and college tours for my sister Rachel, who was in high school by then. The monthly checks became weekly transfers: Dad's medical bills, Tyler's tuition, Rachel's college, prep courses, the mortgage payments when my parents fell behind, car repairs, utility bills about to be disconnected. The list never ended. I didn't realize it then, but I was trapped in a cycle of enablement. Every time I expressed any hesitation about sending more money, Mom would sigh heavily. After all we sacrificed for you growing up. We went without, so you could have opportunities. The guilt was crushing. Looking back, the red flags were waving wildly. Mom always had her hair freshly done when they visited. Dad bought a new truck. Tyler posted spring break photos from Cancun on social media. Rachel had the latest iPhone. But I kept telling myself they needed me, that I was being a good daughter, a good sister. By my 26th birthday, I had given my family over $300,000. I had no savings, mounting credit card debt from covering family, emergencies, and a growing knot of resentment I tried desperately to ignore. But family is family, right? I couldn't turn my back on them. Not yet. As months turned into years, my family's financial demands grew more frequent and more substantial. What started as occasional help for Dad's medical bills morphed into funding their entire lifestyle. Mom stopped working altogether, claiming she needed to be home to care for Dad. But somehow, she found time for weekly manicures and lunches with her friends. "Amanda, honey," she'd call, her voice taking on that syrupy sweet tone that I came to recognize as the prelude to a request. "Your father needs this new treatment the insurance won't cover. It's only $4,000. Only $4,000. As if that were pocket change. I'd transfer the money, then discover through Facebook photos that they'd remodeled their kitchen that same month. Tyler was the worst. My brother had an uncanny ability to manufacture emergencies that aligned perfectly with his social calendar. "Sis, my car broke down again," he'd text, usually on a Thursday or Friday. "Need $2,000 for repairs or I can't get to class." I'd send the money, then see him tagged in photos at music festivals or bars. When confronted, he'd get defensive. "You don't understand how stressful college is. I need to blow off steam sometimes." Rachel, my younger sister, was still in high school, but the expenses for her were mounting too. College tours across the country, SAT prep courses, a private math tutor, dance competitions with custom costumes, and the necessary new laptop for her studies. Mom insisted Rachel needed these things to have the same opportunities I'd had. The irony that I'd had none of these advantages seemed lost on her. To keep up with their demands, I worked 60, sometimes 70-hour weeks. I took on the riskiest clients, the ones with complex portfolios that no one else wanted, because they came with bigger bonuses. My health began to suffer. I developed insomnia, grinding my teeth so badly at night that I cracked a molar. The dentist bill for the crown was another expense I could barely afford. I missed my friend Jessica's wedding because a major client needed me that weekend. I canceled dates, lost touch with college friends, and stopped pursuing hobbies. Apartment, despite being larger, remained sparsely furnished. Why buy a decent couch when that money could cover Tyler's textbooks? There were whispers at work about potential downsizing. The economy was showing early warning signs of trouble. I should have been saving aggressively, building an emergency fund. Instead, I was pouring everything into the bottomless pit of my family's wants. "You know, you really need to start thinking about your own future," my colleague Mark advised over a rare lunch out. "The market's getting shaky. Smart money is battening down the hatches." I nodded but knew I couldn't follow his advice. That very morning, Mom had called about the property taxes being past due. Another $3,000 gone. I tried once, just once, to discuss financial boundaries with my family. We were all together for Thanksgiving at their house. I'd paid for the groceries, as usual. After dinner, while Dad watched football and Tyler was texting friends, I broached the subject with Mom. "I'm worried about my financial situation," I started carefully. "Work is getting uncertain, and I haven't been able to save anything for myself." Mom's face immediately hardened. "Are you saying you don't want to help your family anymore, after everything we've done for you?" "No, that's not what I'm saying. I just think maybe we need a budget, some limits on—" "I can't believe how selfish you've become," she interrupted, voice rising. "Boston changed you. Now you think you're too good for us? Your father is sick. Tyler needs his education. Rachel has her future ahead of her. What about my future? I asked quietly. Dad looked up from the TV. Your mother sacrificed everything for you kids. And this is how you repay her? By bean counting? I retreated, apologized, and transferred another $1,000 to their account before I left that weekend. Only Jessica, my friend since elementary school, saw through it all. During one of our rare phone catch-ups, she said what no one else would. Amanda, they're using you. This isn't normal. They're adults who should be supporting themselves, not draining their daughter dry. They're family, I responded automatically. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs, she countered. They're exploiting you, and it's only going to get worse. I dismissed her concerns, but her words lingered. Deep down, I knew she was right. Yet I kept sending money, kept working myself to exhaustion, kept sacrificing my present and future for people who seemed to take it all for granted. By the 6-year mark of supporting my family, I was physically and emotionally depleted. My once promising career had stalled because I was too exhausted for networking or additional certifications. I had no savings, mounting debt, and a growing sense that something had to give. I just didn't expect it would be my job. The layoffs came suddenly, though in retrospect, the signs had been there for months. Client portfolios shrinking, management meetings behind closed doors, the hiring freeze. Still, I was shocked when my boss called me into his office that Tuesday morning. Amanda, I'm sorry, Marcus said, not quite meeting my eyes. The company needs to reduce headcount by 30%. Your position has been eliminated. But my clients, I protested. My performance reviews have all been stellar. It's not about performance, it's about restructuring. Some of the newer advisors have family connections to the board. He slid a folder across the desk. 2 weeks severance. HR will walk you through the exit process. 2 weeks. After 6 years of dedication, 60 to 70-hour work weeks, millions in managed assets, my value to the company amounted to 2 weeks' pay. I cleaned out my desk in a daze, nodding numbly as HR explained the termination of my benefits. Walking out of the Maxwell Financial building for the last time, I felt oddly calm. I had an impressive resume. The job market was competitive but not impossible. I'd find something new within a month, 2 at most. That calm lasted until I checked my bank account that evening. After sending money to cover Rachel's senior year expenses the previous week, I had just under $8,000 in savings. In Boston, where my rent alone was $2,400 monthly, that would disappear in no time. I immediately updated my resume and began applying for positions. I reached out to contacts in the industry, scheduled coffee meetings, and attended networking events. Everyone was sympathetic but not helpful. Market's tight right now. We just finished our own round of layoffs. Great resume, but we're in a hiring freeze until next quarter. 2 weeks passed with no solid leads. Then a month. I cut expenses ruthlessly. No more takeout, no more subscriptions, nothing but the bare essentials. I sold my designer work clothes on consignment, pawned the pearl earrings I'd bought to celebrate my last promotion, and listed my rarely used but expensive road bike online. When the first round of bills exceeded my available funds, I called my family. Not for a handout, just for a temporary pause on my support. Money's tight right now, Mom. I'm between positions. Oh, she said, her tone instantly cooling. Well, your father has a doctor's appointment next week. The specialist. I'm sorry, but I literally can't right now. I just paid rent, and I'm nearly tapped out. We're counting on you, Amanda. Rachel needs her college deposit paid. I ended the call with a vague promise to figure something out. I maxed out my credit card to send them $3,000. By the 3rd month of unemployment, I was in serious trouble. I'd had a few interviews that went nowhere. The financial sector was contracting across the board. Even positions I was overqualified for had hundreds of applicants. The eviction notice came after I missed a second rent payment. I had 10 days to pay or vacate. I sold everything of value in my apartment. My laptop went last, replaced with a second-hand model that barely functioned. Nothing was enough. In desperation, I applied for retail and food service positions. The manager at a coffee shop near my old office took pity on me. Minimum wage, 25 hours a week. I started the next day, swallowing my pride as I served lattes to former colleagues who averted their eyes in embarrassment. The tips helped, but weren't nearly enough. I applied for unemployment benefits and food assistance. The social services office was a harsh education in how quickly one can fall, from financial stability to precarity. My final night in my apartment, I sat on the bare floor surrounded by the few possessions I hadn't sold or couldn't sell. Some clothes, toiletries, important documents, and a few photos. Everything I owned now fit into 2 suitcases. I called, "Jessica," my voice breaking as I finally admitted the truth. "I have nowhere to go." "Come stay with me," she said without hesitation. "It's just a couch, but it's yours as long as you need it." I thanked her through tears, then made one more call. To my mother. Despite everything, they were family. Surely, in my darkest hour, they would help the daughter who had given them everything. My hands trembled as I dialed my mother's number. I had never asked them for anything since leaving for college. Not once. Now I needed them. And despite all the warning signs, I believed family would come through when it truly mattered. "Mom," answered on the 3rd ring. "Amanda, I was just about to call you. Rachel needs money for her graduation dress." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something serious." "What is it, honey? You sound strange." "I've lost my apartment. I'm being evicted tomorrow." My voice cracked. "I haven't found a new position yet. The coffee shop doesn't pay enough for rent in Boston." There was a pause. "What are you saying, exactly?" "I need help. I've been supporting everyone for 6 years, and now I need support. Just temporarily." "What kind of help?" Her voice had taken on a cautious tone. "I was hoping I could come home for a little while, just until I get back on my feet. I can sleep in my old room or even on the couch." Another pause, longer this time. I heard her cover the phone and speak to someone, presumably my father. Muffled. Voices went back and forth. Then she returned. "Amanda, you know we love you, but your father and I are concerned. You've always been so responsible. How did you let things get this bad?" The question hit me like a slap. How did I let things get this bad? "Mom, I've sent you over $300,000 in the past 6 years. If I hadn't been supporting the entire family, I would have had savings to weather this storm." "Now hold on," she said, voice hardening. "We never asked you to send that money. You offered." I nearly dropped the phone in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? You called me constantly with emergencies and bills. Every week there was some new financial crisis that only I could solve." "Well, that's what family does. We help each other. Your father and I sacrificed everything to raise you." I heard Dad in the background. "Put her on speaker." The sound quality changed as Mom complied. "Amanda," my father's gruff voice came through. "You need to take responsibility for your own decisions. Nobody forced you to send money. Nobody forced you to take a job you could lose. I took that job to support our family. I worked 70-hour weeks so Tyler could party through college and Rachel could have every advantage. Don't you dare throw that in our faces," Mom cut in. "We raised you, fed you, clothed you for 18 years. Anything you've done since is just paying back a fraction of what we invested in you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you're saying you won't help me? After everything I've done?" Mom's voice turned sickeningly sweet. "Honey, you're a grown woman. You need to figure this out yourself. That's how you learn responsibility." "I've been responsible for this. Entire family since I was 21, I said, tears streaming now. I just need a place to stay for a few weeks. That's when it happened. She laughed. A short, dismissive laugh that cut deeper than any knife could. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, she said, amusement evident in her voice. The big-shot Boston financial advisor needs to come crawling home. What would your fancy colleagues think? I was stunned into silence. Amanda, she continued, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You could find a nice man to take care of you. That's more reliable than any job. I heard Tyler in the background. Tell her about Florida, Mom. Oh, yes, Mom said brightly. We just got back from the most wonderful week in Florida. Tyler found this gorgeous beach house rental in Key West. A bit pricey, but we deserved a vacation after all the stress with your father's health. The pieces clicked into place. The emergency, money I'd sent for Dad's specialist appointment, had funded a family vacation, a vacation they hadn't even invited me to. You went to Florida, with the money I sent for Dad's medical treatment. Now, Amanda, Mom's voice turned defensive. Your father needed sun and relaxation, doctor's orders. It was therapeutic. I'm about to be homeless, I whispered. Don't be so dramatic. You always exaggerate. Stay with a friend. Figure it out. You're smart, you'll land on your feet. She paused. We'll pray for you, of course. In the background, I heard Rachel ask, shouldn't we help her? Mind your business, Mom snapped at her. Then, to me, call us when you've sorted yourself out. And don't forget Rachel's graduation is coming up. She'll need a nice gift from her big sister. The call ended. I sat in my empty apartment, phone still clutched in my hand, completely shattered. 6 years of sacrifice, of putting their needs before my own, of believing in family above all else. And when I needed them for the first time, my own mother laughed at me. I curled up on the bare floor and sobbed until there were no tears left. My last night in the apartment was spent in a strange, hollow state. The tears had dried, leaving behind a numbness I'd never experienced before. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat by the window watching the city lights, replaying years of interactions, with my family, seeing them through new eyes. The constant emergencies that always seemed to align with vacations or purchases, the guilt trips when I hesitated to send money, the lack of gratitude, the absence of any real interest in my life beyond what I could provide financially. Morning came, and with it, the property manager to ensure I vacated. I handed over my keys without a word and wheeled my 2 suitcases to the subway station. Jessica lived in Somerville, about 30 minutes away. She was at work, but had left a key under the mat as promised. Her apartment was small, cluttered but clean. The couch that would be my bed for the foreseeable future was an old futon with a slight dip in the middle. It looked like paradise to me. I stored my suitcases in the corner she'd cleared for me and headed straight to the coffee shop for my shift. The manager, Diane, took one look at my face and pulled me aside. Rough night? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Take register today, less customer interaction. A small kindness that nearly broke me again. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of humiliation and survival. I applied for every financial position I could find, regardless of seniority or pay. I went to interviews between coffee shop shifts, changing in public bathrooms from my barista uniform to my one remaining professional outfit. The worst moments were serving former colleagues. Most avoided eye contact, some offered empty platitudes about hanging in there, and a few seemed to take perverse pleasure in seeing me brought low. Grande iced Americano, a former junior analyst named Brad smirked, dropping a $1 tip in the jar. Guess that MBA didn't work out so well, huh? At night, I curled up on Jessica's futon, trying to make myself as small as possible, hyper-aware of being an imposition despite her constant reassurances. Stay as long as you need, she'd say. I mean it, Amanda. You'd do the same for me. Would my family ever have done the same? The question haunted me. They continued calling and texting as if nothing had happened, as if my mother hadn't laughed at my homelessness, as if they hadn't gone on vacation with money meant for medical bills while I sold my possessions to buy food. Rachel needs money. For college orientation. Tyler's car broke down again. Your father's medication copay went up. I stopped answering their calls. Each message felt like salt in an open wound. The final straw came during a particularly difficult shift. A pipe had burst in the back room, and I'd spent hours mopping up water while still trying to serve customers. My feet were soaked, my back ached, and a customer had just berated me for making her latte too hot. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We need $2,000 for property taxes by Friday. Don't ignore your family responsibilities. Something broke inside me. Or perhaps something finally healed. In that moment of clarity, I saw the relationship for what it was. Not family, but exploitation. Not love, but use. That evening, I used Jessica's laptop to research family financial abuse. The stories I found mirrored my own with eerie similarity. Children, especially daughters, supporting parents well beyond reasonable expectations. The guilt, the manipulation, the entitlement. I wasn't alone, and I wasn't crazy for feeling used. Jessica came home to find me surrounded by printouts, taking notes. "What's all this?" she asked. "Research," I replied. "I'm trying to understand what happened to me." She sat beside me, reading over my shoulder. "I've been telling you for years they were taking advantage of you." "I know. I just couldn't see it until they abandoned me when I needed them." The next day, I used my coffee shop break to visit a community mental health center offering sliding scale counseling. The intake therapist, a kind woman named Layla, listened to my abbreviated story. "What you're describing is a common pattern in financially abusive family dynamics," she said gently. "The expectation that one family member will perpetually sacrifice for others without reciprocity is not healthy or normal." "What do I do now?" I asked. "That depends on what you want. Some people establish boundaries but maintain contact. Others find they need a clean break to heal." I knew immediately which category I fell into. That night, I drafted an email to my entire family. It took hours to get the wording right. I detailed every dollar I'd sent over 6 years, every missed opportunity, every sacrifice. I described my current situation and their response to it. Finally, I set my boundary. I will no longer be providing financial support of any kind. I will not be responding to calls, texts, or emails. This boundary is non-negotiable until I receive acknowledgement of the harm done and a genuine apology from each of you. I am not a bank. I am a person who deserved better from the people who should have loved me most. I hit send, then blocked their numbers and email addresses. I unfriended and blocked them on social media. I cut every possible avenue of contact. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The weight of obligation lifted, leaving space for something new, possibility. That night, I slept without grinding my teeth for the first time in months. The next morning, I woke with a clarity and purpose I'd thought lost forever. It was time to rebuild, but on my terms. Without the crushing responsibility of supporting people who saw me as nothing more than a financial resource. I was at rock bottom, but now I could see a way up and out that had been obscured before. I was free. 6 months passed. Small victories accumulated into meaningful progress. I found a position at a boutique financial firm called Westbrook Partners. The salary was lower than my previous job, but the culture was healthier. No 70-hour weeks, no cutthroat competition, just solid work with reasonable expectations. Jessica had introduced me to her friend Lily, who needed a third roommate in their Cambridge apartment. My portion of the rent was manageable on my new salary. My room was tiny, converted from a walk-in closet, but it was mine. I furnished it, simply from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace finds. The coffee shop had been understanding when I gave notice, and Diane even hugged me goodbye. "You'll be okay, Amanda. You're stronger than you think." She was right. Each day, without my family's financial demands, I grew stronger. I opened a savings account and watched with satisfaction as the balance grew. Slowly at first, then more, substantially as I received my first quarterly bonus. Even my social life began to recover. Jessica and Lily invited me to trivia nights and weekend brunches. I met Michael, a software engineer with kind eyes and a quiet sense of humor, at one of these outings. We started dating casually at first, both of us cautious but interested. "My last relationship ended because I worked too much," I explained on our third date. "What were you working so hard for?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I'd never really explained my family situation to anyone except Jessica and my therapist. But something about Michael's genuine interest made me want to share. I told him everything. The 6 years of support, the betrayal, the cutting off contact. I expected judgment, or at least discomfort. Instead, he reached across the table and took my hand. "That took incredible courage," he said simply. "Both the years of sacrifice and knowing when to stop." Our relationship deepened after that. Michael became another anchor in my new life, someone who saw me for who I was rather than what I could provide. Around the same time, an unexpected opportunity arose. A colleague at Westbrook mentioned that her sister was struggling with predatory lending debt. "She's smart, but no one ever taught her about finance," she explained. "Would you mind talking to her?" I agreed to meet for coffee. 2 hours later, I had helped her develop a repayment strategy and budget plan. The relief on her face was familiar. It was how I felt when I finally set boundaries with my family. Word spread. Soon, I was meeting with friends of friends, colleagues, relatives, neighbors. I started a small side business offering financial literacy coaching, particularly focused on helping people recognize and escape financial exploitation. Life was stabilizing. Not perfect, but improving steadily. I was sleeping better, eating regularly, even starting to enjoy simple pleasures. Again, the constant anxiety that had been my companion for years had receded to manageable levels. Then the calls began. The first one came on a Tuesday afternoon, unknown number with my hometown area code. I let it go to voicemail. No message. 2 days later, another call from the same number. Again, no message. The pattern continued, increasing in frequency. Still, I maintained my boundary. No contact meant no contact. After about 3 weeks, the first voicemail appeared. "Amanda, it's Mom. We need to talk. Things are difficult here. Call me back." I deleted it without response. More calls came. Different numbers, but all from my hometown. Sometimes from Tyler's phone, sometimes from numbers I didn't recognize. The voicemails grew more desperate. "Amanda, please. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Your father's health is worse. We can't afford his medication. This silent treatment is childish. We're your family." I shared the messages with my therapist, who helped me process the complicated emotions they triggered. Guilt, anger, grief, even a flicker of vindication. "They're experiencing natural consequences," she reminded me. "Not punishment you're inflicting." The 69th call was different. It came from Rachel, my younger sister. We'd always been the least close due to our age difference, but she'd also been the only one to suggest helping me when I was homeless. "Amanda, it's Rachel. I know you probably delete these messages, but please listen. Things are really bad here. Mom and Dad remortgaged the house to pay for Tyler's car and their vacation. The payments are more than they can afford. Dad lost his disability benefits because Mom didn't file the paperwork correctly. She's working at Walmart now, but it's not enough. Tyler moved back home and he's not contributing anything. I'm trying to balance community college and 2 jobs. I'm not asking you to send money. I understand why you cut us off now. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. If you want to talk, I'm at a different number now." She left the number, and for the first time, I felt conflicted about my no-contact rule. That evening, I discussed it with Michael as we cooked dinner in his apartment. "You don't owe them anything," he reminded me, chopping vegetables with careful precision. "Not your money, not your time, not even a response." I know, but Rachel was just a kid when all this was happening. She's the only one who showed any concern when I was homeless. "Then maybe she's the only one worth considering contact with," he suggested. "But on your terms, not because of a family emergency." Michael was right. I didn't have to sacrifice my hard-won boundaries to respond to another crisis. I could choose a limited, controlled form of contact with the one family member who had shown a glimmer of empathy. The next day, I texted Rachel's new number. "This is Amanda. I got your message. I'm willing to talk, but only with you, not Mom, Dad, or Tyler." Her response was immediate. "Thank you. When?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between Boston and my hometown. Neutral territory. I asked Jessica to drive me, not fully trusting that my family wouldn't try to ambush me. "I'll wait in the car," Jessica promised. "Just text if you need an escape." Rachel looked different when I saw her. Thinner, more tired, her eyes lacking the carefree spark of the teenager I remembered. We ordered drinks and sat in an awkward silence before she finally spoke. "They didn't tell me what they did. When you needed help, I mean. I only found out recently when I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Linda." "They laughed at me, Rachel. I was about to be homeless and they laughed." She looked down at her hands. "I believe you. Things are different now that I'm working and contributing. I see how they operate." She explained the family's financial collapse after my support ended. The foreclosure notice, Dad's declining health, Mom's resentment at having to work retail at her age, Tyler's continued irresponsibility. "Mom has a gambling problem," she revealed, voice dropping to a whisper. "Online slots. She must have spent thousands of your money on it. Dad enables her. Tyler just takes advantage." The revelation should have shocked me, but somehow it made perfect sense. The constant need for money, the evasiveness about where it went, the lack of visible improvements in their situation despite my substantial contributions. "I'm not coming back," I said firmly. "I'm not sending money. I'm not fixing this." "I know," Rachel nodded. "I wouldn't ask you to. I just wanted you to know I understand now, and I'm sorry." We talked for another hour about her community college studies, her dreams of becoming a nurse, her struggle to break free from the same dysfunctional patterns that had ensnared me. "I want to help you," I found myself saying. "Not them. Just you. And not with cash. With education, mentoring, a path to independence." Her eyes filled with tears. "Really? After everything our family did? You're not them," I said simply. "And I don't want you to go through what I did." We left with a plan. I would help her transfer to a Boston community college. She could stay with me and my roommates temporarily while establishing herself. I would mentor her on financial literacy, help her apply for scholarships, show her how to build a life free from financial exploitation. But I would document everything, create clear agreements, and maintain firm boundaries. No money would go to our parents or Tyler. No information about my life would be shared with them. One violation of these terms would end my support. Rachel agreed readily. "I don't want to be like them," she said as we parted. "I want to be like you." As Jessica drove me back to Boston, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Sadness for the family relationships that were irreparably broken. Relief that I had maintained my boundaries. Hope for Rachel and the possibility of helping her avoid my mistakes. And underneath it all, a steadying certainty that I had made The right decision in cutting off the people who had taken everything and offered nothing in return. The mysterious calls had reached 69 in total. They stopped after my meeting with Rachel. Perhaps they'd realized I wasn't coming back. Perhaps they'd found another source of support. Either way, I was no longer their solution, and the knowledge was liberating. A year after cutting off contact with my parents and brother, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark days on Jessica's futon. My career at Westbrook Partners had progressed to senior advisor status. My financial, coaching side business had grown to require its own dedicated website and scheduling system. And most importantly, I had reclaimed my sense of self-worth. Rachel had successfully transferred to a Boston community college and moved into the spare room of my new apartment, a 2-bedroom I could now comfortably afford. True to our agreement, she paid a small amount in rent, attended financial literacy sessions with me, and maintained her academic standing. Watching her flourish away from our family's toxic dynamics brought me unexpected joy. "I got an A on my anatomy exam," she announced one evening, her face glowing with pride. "That's fantastic. Your studying really paid off." "It's easier to focus when no one's creating constant drama and emergencies," she observed. She was right. The absence of chaos was perhaps the most healing aspect of my new life. No more middle-of-the-night panic calls about disconnected utilities. No more guilt-laden requests for money. No more sacrificing my needs to fulfill others' wants. My relationship with Michael deepened into something solid and reciprocal. He supported my healing journey without trying to fix everything, and I learned to trust his consistency. When he proposed after 18 months together, I said yes, without hesitation. The simple solitaire ring he offered was within his budget, and the fact that he hadn't gone into debt to impress me spoke volumes about our shared values. Through Rachel, I occasionally received updates about my parents and Tyler. The house had indeed been foreclosed upon. They'd moved into a small apartment paid for primarily by my father's reduced Social Security benefits. Mom had been forced to continue working at Walmart, a reality she bitterly resented. Tyler had eventually moved to another state to live with. A girlfriend, still financially dependent, just on someone new. "They still talk about you," Rachel confided. "Mom says you abandoned the family. Dad doesn't say much anymore. I think he knows they were wrong, but he'll never admit it." I had expected to feel vindicated by their struggles, but instead felt only a distant sadness for what could have been had they chosen genuine family bonds over financial exploitation. My financial literacy coaching grew into a formal business. I created an online support group for survivors of family financial abuse, which quickly grew to hundreds of members. Their stories mirrored my own. Adult children supporting parents, well beyond reasonable expectations, siblings draining resources from the responsible one, the guilt and manipulation used to maintain access to funds. Sharing my experience publicly was terrifying at first. I worried about judgment, about people thinking I was selfish or uncaring. Instead, I found validation and community. My first speaking engagement at a financial wellness conference led to more invitations. I began writing articles for financial websites about recognizing and escaping financial exploitation by family members. "You've turned your pain into purpose," Michael observed as I prepared notes for a workshop. "That's incredibly brave." The final test of my boundaries came unexpectedly. I was at my office when my assistant transferred a call. "There's a woman named Linda Collins insisting on speaking with you. Says she's your mother and it's an emergency." My heart raced, but my resolve remained firm. "Please tell her I'm unavailable and won't be taking her call." But curiosity got the better of me. "Actually, wait, put her through." "Amanda?" My mother's voice, so familiar yet distant now. "Finally, we need to talk." "Why are you calling my workplace?" I kept my tone neutral, professional. "You've blocked us everywhere else. What choice did I have?" The familiar note of accusation. "What do you want, Mom?" Your father's health has taken a turn. The doctors say he needs specialized care. We thought, given the circumstances, you might reconsider your position. My position on what exactly? On helping your family, of course. We've been struggling since you cut us off. The directness of it was almost refreshing. No pretense, just a straightforward request for money. I'm not sending money, I said calmly. Not now, not ever again. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us? Her voice rose. We're living in a tiny apartment. Your father can barely afford his medication. Is that what you want? What I want, I replied, is acknowledgement of what happened. An apology for laughing when I was homeless. Recognition of the 6 years I carried this family financially while sacrificing my own security and future. The line went quiet for a moment. I'm sorry if you felt we didn't appreciate you enough, she finally said. That's not an apology, that's deflection. Fine. I'm sorry we couldn't help when you lost your job. We had our own problems. Including a vacation in Florida paid for with money I sent for Dad's medical treatment? Another pause. We made some poor decisions. Is that what you want to hear? We're human, Amanda. We made mistakes. Yes, you did. And now you're living with the consequences of those mistakes, just as I had to live with the consequences of mine. So that's it? You're going to let your father suffer because you're holding a grudge? I'm establishing a boundary because I value myself enough not to be used anymore. I could hear her frustration mounting. And if we need help with Rachel's tuition? Rachel and I have our own arrangement. She's doing well without your interference. She told you about the gambling, didn't she? Mom's voice suddenly turned cold. She always was your little spy. She told me the truth, which is more than you ever did. So what now? You've got your fancy job back, your perfect life, and the rest of us should just suffer? What now is goodbye, Mom? I wish you well, but I won't be part of your life unless there's genuine change and accountability. Please don't contact me at work again. I hung up before she could respond. My hands trembled slightly, but my resolve didn't waver. That brief conversation confirmed what I already knew. Nothing had changed. The only difference was that I had. That evening, I shared the interaction with my support group. One member's comment particularly resonated. The hardest part of breaking the cycle is accepting that some people will never acknowledge their role in your pain. Your healing can't depend on their recognition. How true that was. My healing had come not from receiving the apology I deserved, but from building a life that didn't require their validation. Michael and I bought our first home that summer, a modest condo in a neighborhood we loved. Rachel graduated with her associate's degree and transferred to a 4-year nursing program. My financial coaching business expanded to include workshops for young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them skills no one had taught me. I found peace not in reconciliation with those who had hurt me, but in creating a chosen family of friends and loved ones who demonstrated what healthy relationships actually look like. People who celebrated my successes rather than seeing them as resources to exploit. People who offered support without keeping score. The journey from financial exploitation to freedom taught me that sometimes the bravest act of love is walking away from those who cannot or will not respect your boundaries. That family is defined by behavior, not blood. That generosity should come from abundance, not obligation or guilt. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was never tied to what I could provide financially. I was valuable simply for being me, with all my strengths and flaws, dreams and fears. No amount of money could purchase the self-respect I had reclaimed. If you've stayed with me through this story, perhaps you've recognized elements of your own experience. Maybe you're the responsible one, the fixer, the provider in your family. Maybe you've given until there's nothing left, only to find yourself alone when you finally need support. If that's you, please know you're not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your boundaries are necessary. Your future matters just as much as anyone else's. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? How did you find the strength to prioritize your own well-being? Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let others know they're not alone in these struggles. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more authentic stories of healing and growth. Like and share to help others who might be silently facing similar battles. Thank you for listening to my journey from exploitation to empowerment. Remember, you can love your family deeply while still loving yourself enough to say, no more. That's not selfishness, that's survival.